And our next guest is a local phenomena that unless you're a devout YouTube enthusiast, you may not know. But, boy, when you look at the numbers, there's a lot of devout YouTube enthusiasts because he has made this quite a little niche audience, not so little niche audience. He's the hockey guy of YouTube. Out in the Fraser Valley, it's Shannon Skeens joining us here on Sekeres and Price. Shannon, thank you for joining us. The hockey guy is here on Sekeres and Price, and we couldn't be more pleased to have you.
Yeah, it's the weird thing too about the name the hockey guy is that was just a placeholder. Like as my channel was growing, I was like, well, I need a name. I'll just make it that. And I'll have something that's not stupid or generic later, and then it's stuck. And so, that's it.
So the brand.
Be very careful when you name yourself at the beginning of something.
Right.
You might get stuck with it.
That's right. The brand found you, Shannon.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't call yourself the idiot hockey guy, because here we'd be introducing you, the idiot hockey guy. Give us the timeline. When did you start this?
Well, I mean, really, I started making YouTube videos in 2015, but like the hockey part of it hit in 2016. That's where it started getting traction. So I went in that direction. It was around the 2016 draft where I really wanted the Canucks to draft Tkachuk. Famously, they did not. And it just went from there. I started doing like team previews, and I really thought, there seems to be an audience that's not served here, that a lot of media may ignore certain teams. Wouldn't it be fun if I started something where I'm talking about every team equally? So that's kind of what started it.
You are a Canucks fan, though, Shannon. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, which leaves me kind of in the middle of a mess where you've got, seems like half the fan base wants everything blown up and half the fan base wants the cup immediately, and I don't know that either of those things are realistic.
So for those who are not familiar, just give us an example of the types of videos that you do.
Well, like I just finished up the season previews, so I did one for each of the 32 teams. I try to do, during the summer, I try to do some of the historical stuff because I like, recalling series and events and careers from the 80s and 90s. I especially like to focus on players that I feel like it's easy to kind of forget because we remember the Gretzkys, the Messiers, and everything. I think, it's kind of nice if I do a video on a player that might be kind of forgotten.
Steve Larmer, the likes of those kind of guys, right?
Yeah, like today I'm setting up for a Tony Amonte video.
Yeah.
So, Amonte had a nice long career. Sadly was traded by the Rangers a couple of months before they won the Stanley Cup. So, I feel like that's a good player to do a career video on.
I've noticed you employ some old school. Were you a you have to tell us what your day job is. I've noticed you have the whiteboard up sometimes, and you do sketches on the whiteboard, or rankings on the whiteboard, and that sort of thing.
I always use the whiteboard. So in previous jobs I've had, because YouTube is now my source of income. But before I was a YouTuber, I used to train at various jobs I had. And I had one job where they made me use PowerPoint, and I had one where I used a whiteboard. The whiteboard is so much easier. I
like whiteboards, yeah.
It feels more interactive.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a slideshow presentation. And it's just, I feel it's an easier way to bring things across. And yeah, I mean, when I was starting out, it was really more for me because I would forget things. I would sit down to do a video and be like, oh, I was going to talk about that and I forgot. So I'd write the topics on the board, and eventually that just became part of the presentation.
You are idiot hockey guy.
Boy,
I
was going to say there's a lot of serendipity that brought you to this new career, Shannon. Well done. And I love the whiteboard, too, because, what's he going to write? Right? There's a little bit of that mystery as opposed to what's the next slide. Yep. Congratulations on making this a career. How long has that been the case?
I went, well, it's funny because in 2017, I stepped away from my full-time job. My wife actually talked me into it because we were pointing out that on days where I went and did the 9-to-5 job, I was actually making less money than if I was at home on the weekend. And we saw that there was a lot of growth potential there, so I had to kind of take that leap. And so I had a part-time job for the next 7 months, and then I went full-time because the playoffs were coming up, and I realized that my job was going to get really busy in April, and I couldn't do both. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do YouTube full-time. I'm going to take the leap. and it was really hard, but it's paid off. Really has.
I'm sure the Canucks fans are your biggest audience in terms of the piece of the pie. Where's your second biggest audience? Because you do spread your focus around the league. So have certain areas glommed onto you more than others?
Well, what I noticed was, so initially there was a lot of Leaf fans because I was choked that they got Matthews, because I was like, oh man, all we're going to hear all summer is about Matthews and the Leafs, and we're already hearing everything about the Leafs, even though they were last in the league. This is just, and so Leaf fans glommed on because, they wanted to take their shots, and then of course Canuck fans came in because they knew that I was local. And then it was a matter of whichever team was doing well, like Vegas. When Vegas came in, I made a lot of videos explaining hockey. I made a lot of videos talking about, okay, this is how this works. Because while a lot of hockey purists were like, well, Vegas is never going to get this and who cares? That's a terrible place to go. All I thought was, hey, views are views. Like, if I'm able to get views from brand new hockey fans, I should do that. And so I should do videos basically welcoming them in and talking to them not like they're 4-year-olds. And just explain it, because I even had somebody when I went to Las Vegas who's kind of well known that admitted to me that they didn't understand offside when the season started. And it was a video of mine that explained it, because they felt embarrassed to ask a hockey fan what offside was, because then you're going to get well, you shouldn't even be watching this game if you don't know what that is. So I try to bridge that gap.
Shannon, do you have a personal background in the game? Just a fan? Where does hockey start for you?
Just a fan. I was watching hockey. I mean, my dad watched, my grandfather watched, and I watched it starting it had to go back to 1980. But I got addicted to collecting hockey cards, and I would go through every single stat. So I would memorize all the players' names, all their stats. Then I would get all the yearbooks, every yearbook I could find, anything related to hockey, and I would memorize. I would go through, the NHL Guide and Record Book. I'd go through that cover to cover, and I would just keep going through it. And so it just kind of stays there.
You sound like me. That was my life as well. I did the hockey cards, the Bible. We called it the Bible all the time. That's amazing. And the jerseys.
How else are you going to find out which hockey players are single and which ones have
right?
wives?
And their pet peeves
the whole year
and
that
their
they
allergies.
Told you everybody was single.
Tell us about the jerseys. When did that start?
That was man. My first jersey must have been, I think it was in 1990. I would have had them sooner, but the price was just a little bit high for what my parents wanted to pay, so I had T-shirts and sweatshirts. But once I graduated high school, I was out buying jerseys, and I wanted to have a jersey for every team in the league. I thought that would be fun. I always enjoyed that when a team won the Stanley Cup, I could wear their jersey the next day, and I don't really. I don't, it's weird because when I leave the house, I realize if I'm wearing all Toronto gear, people are going to be like, oh, he's a Leafs fan. So I have to watch that. But to me, it's just, I like hockey. So I like collecting the jerseys and various NHL collectibles because I enjoy that.
You have a current count?
Yeah.
Oh, the count. I have not, I haven't counted them in a long time.
Yeah.
It's a high number. I know it's a high number. It's a lot. I did a jersey countdown last summer where I counted down my favorite jerseys, and I know that countdown was 480 jerseys.
And that was just your favorite ones.
Yeah, and I've added way more since then, and now they're going to have a whole round of reverse retro again. So, yeah.
So is that it then? You commit to buying every jersey that gets out there onto NHL backs?
There's a jersey seller that I go through that we kind of have an agreement that I promote him through my channel.
Cool.
The first time I promoted him, he said, okay, I got 5 orders in the last couple hours. You have really good reach. So we can work together here. And so when he sends out jerseys, he sends out a card that actually promotes my channel. And then on the channel, I promote him as well.
Oh.
So it's a really good cross-promotion we have going
Fantastic. And, of course, now they're a business write-off, right, for you?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Shannon, anyone can put on a hockey jersey and speak to a camera and publish on YouTube. What's your special sauce, my man? What do you think the audience comes to you to see?
Well, I know one thing that I think helps is that I always, through various things, and it's something I never thought I could make any money doing, but like in high school and then in my church, I would often do like acting. I'd do monologues. I would do improv. And so I did a lot of that, and I got really used to how to project my voice, how to speak in public, and how to do all that. And I think that helps when it comes to the YouTube side of it. Mm-hmm. Like I know, however many years ago it was, I saw people doing the YouTube thing, and I thought, I could probably do something like that. I just couldn't figure out what my angle would be and what my videos would be about. But I think it helps that I have that drama background, and I have, I had a lot of experience doing that kind of thing and working without a script, because I don't have a script for any of my videos either.
Do you realize you're a pioneer? Like you are. Like people have said that about our show going to the digital space. You predate us by years.
Oh, like OG in the digital space, Shannon.
Yeah. It was not something that I had intended to do. I had no idea at the time. I just knew that I really enjoyed talking about hockey, and that the growth numbers were explosive pretty quickly. So there was a need in the market, and then of course once that's happened, then others will transition in. It's, for me, I just see it that like I love the game, I love watching the sport, and I guess that translates through the camera.
Let's talk Canucks before we
I've got one last question for him.
Oh, sure.
I was just going to ask him how he thinks the Canucks are going to do this year.
Okay, let's go with that.
Okay, so it's tough because, again, just from a channel perspective, I understand that it looks like bias. I don't see any reason this team can't make the playoffs. I think that there's a lot of people that want to talk about the defense and, the defense isn't good enough, but it was fine under Boudreau. The defense doesn't have to be spectacular. It just has to be good. And as long as Demko can follow up what he did last year, and if they get another season from Miller, doesn't have to score 99 points. They need the bounce back from Pettersson. They need a healthy season from Besser. I don't see any reason they can't at least snag a wild card spot, which might make me sound kind of biased, but at the same time, they were 32, 15, and 10 under Boudreau. I don't see any reason they can't put up similar numbers under him for a full season.
No, I'm with you. I think it's a playoff team as well.
It's a formula that Rutherford saw work. Don't have a gold standard defense, but have depth and quality and high end forward talent. Maybe they outscore and save their way via Demko to a playoff spot. I'm of the same mind. Can they get to 100 points, or do you think that's like a 98-point sort of second or third seed team?
I mean, they can put together 3 scoring lines this year. If Kuzmenko hits, and if Podkolzin takes that next step, and especially and people keep talking about, well, Höglander's going to have a bounce back. I just don't know. I don't know where Höglander fits in is where I have a problem. Like when I'm doing like a depth chart, anything with the Canucks, try to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out exactly where Höglander's going to fit in. But, I mean, if they can figure out the scoring lines, they could very well hit 100 points. It is possible.
Shannon, amazing success. You're an inspiration for those of us in the digital space.
Yes,
Keep on keeping on, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, congrats on your success. Thanks for joining us.